Did you even know that your constitutional rights can be stripped just simply by a person making a false report to the police? It happens. It happened here. It's never an option. It's never even crossed my mind to file a phony police report against somebody to try to harm them. It's what happened to me. And I think we should shed some light on it right here. My mom was a domestic violence survivor. She was killed by a man who I guess I'd have to refer to as my stepfather. Abandoned her at home, left her as much alcohol as she wanted when she wasn't supposed to have it. She'd been through 4 detoxes, hospital detoxes, and this man ended up taking her life and taking her assets, taking her home, taking my family assets. I don't want to see that happen to anybody ever again. But in order for us to live in an organized society, we need to have a court system and a law enforcement system and a judicial system that we can count on, that we can trust. I did everything I could to protect my mother against this guy, but it didn't work. Could it be because the courts are allowing things like this to happen?
Communications may help you.
Hi, yes, I need to place an order. I don't exactly know what that means, but a dispatcher just used that term and said to call the non-emergency number.
What you heard there was a call placed to the 911 non-emergency line by my ex-wife, not my children's mother. That's my first ex-wife. This would be my second ex-wife. Where she was calling our local police department in an effort to get an escort back in our house that she was not ever asked to not come back, that she had full permission to come in and go as she pleased. She was my wife. To give a little context, I got divorced in 2017. My children's wife and I got separated in 2015, divorced in 2017. In that divorce, the mother of my children attempted to file an emergency restraining order with the judge to keep the children away from me during the entire divorce process. Now, granted, my wife left, went and got another place, left the family home, took all the money, took all the money. I was running a business, working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, killing myself to keep us afloat. She broke a promise, took all of her income, went and rented a $3,500 a month house on the water, leaving me to fend for myself, filing for divorce, and trying to take the children from me, telling me that I was a violent, abusive person. She didn't get that order granted for obvious reasons, but she tried. That was my first kind of excursion in dealing with what this, I mean, I've only been in one relationship since 1996 at this point. You know, I was with her for over 20 years. Now, fast forward, I meet my second wife in 2018. We have a whirlwind romance. I mean, it was the most amazing time I think I've ever had in my life. I loved her. I really did. I still do, even after what has happened, but that doesn't matter to this story. She moved from about 1,000 miles away up to where I lived with my children. Her family was all for it. We had a great big wedding. It was fun. Mostly her friends. My friends had already been to a wedding. And, you know, I started to notice some things that were tough. She was a yeller. Could be kind of an abusive person. I mean, she had a lot of trauma in her life. So, you know, a lot of these things I kind of understood. And I thought I was really good at taking verbal abuse because I was the child of an alcoholic. I grew up in an alcoholic home with a verbally abusive mother and a father who was not around. So, a little different upbringing. But long story short, we lasted about a year, year and a half, and it just got too much for me to have the kids subjected to the amount of drama, the amount of emotional roller coasters that were kind of prevalent in this new relationship. And we were adults. We got into this. I figured we were adults, we could get out. So I asked for a divorce. I said it was all over. You know, things were great when we had money. When I was making great money, you know, driving Lamborghinis all over Las Vegas and traveling to Europe, everything was grand. There was not a problem in the air. But it's funny, both of my marriages, as soon as money gets tight, as soon as you're not bringing home large quantities of cash every month guaranteed, that partnership that you guys formed at the altar tends to turn combative. And on this particular afternoon, after I'd asked, you know, that we end things and called her dad, asked her dad to come up and drive the U-Haul truck back, I would help load. Everything was fairly cordial. I mean, obviously emotions were high, but I thought everything was fine. She left. She said she was going to a friend's house, going to go spend some time, do some thinking, whatever. It was fine. You know, we were communicating. So as I thought we were communicating. Well, the cops ended up stopping by my house this evening, or not this evening, but the evening of this occurrence. And I didn't really know why. I started to suspect that maybe there was some cryings of domestic violence again. But unbeknownst to me, she was trying to paint a picture. She was trying to build some sort of a context for me being abusive. Now, if being abusive is offering to help, offering to pay, offering to talk, and just generally offering to just be helpful, I just can't handle being yelled at, then I guess I'm guilty. But this right here was just an absolute playbook, I think. And from what I'm seeing on the internet, I'm not the only person this playbook's happened to.
I'm in a domestic violence situation, and I need to go into my home, and I need to get a list of things, and then I need to return on Saturday and be
What's
able to...
the address of the home?
Street.
And no
Silicon.
emergencies happening right at the moment?
No, I'm driving from Kelso to the house.
Hold on just a moment, please.
Maybe some of you out there can help me. We had no children together. We had no assets to split. Our divorce was essentially going to be the easiest thing in the world. We had almost spent everything I had saved for my family, including the proceeds of the sale of our house. What is the point of making claims of domestic violence when you're moving back 1,000 miles away from me? Why the need to paint me as an abusive person if we're just moving towards a breakup that's happening? You know, it's not amicable, let's say, but I mean, it was hard. It was emotional. You know, we loved each other. It was very frustrating. The communication was non-existent. There was no logic. There was no, it was like talking in a circle. It was like, I don't know, it was like arguing or trying to protect yourself against somebody that is just constantly changing the attack. I just didn't understand it, but it obviously kept going. I am the first person who will come running to help a male or a female in a situation of abuse or domestic violence or anything. In fact, I've gotten myself into all kinds of dramatic situations trying to help people in those situations where most people I don't think would help somebody in that situation. I'm a huge advocate for women who are abused. Coming from, having a mother who was abused, all false reporting does is hurt the real victims, right? Isn't that right? So what's kind of funny about this call to get a police escort is she knew I wasn't home. First of all, she was allowed to come in the house. We never had an argument or anything about her not coming back or me being at home. I think I was at the golf course hitting golf balls, just thinking to myself. So when she came there with the police, I got a call from my neighbors that said that my wife was there with the cops. So I had no idea this even happened, and she knew I wasn't there. So this was only done to document something. I wonder what for.
For holding, how may I help you?
Hi, yes, I called earlier about a police escort to my house to grab a small list of items in the town of Silicon, and I am now here.
When you called, did you give the address where you were going to be waiting?
They told me to wait a few blocks away, and I'm at the post office, but is the address I gave them, that's my address.
Okay, but they may not have done anything if you didn't have a location. They need to know where you're waiting. So it's the post office on what street?
On Los.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I was driving up from Kelso, and they told me to call you guys back when I got here.
Right, so that we would be able to enter a call. They don't enter the calls in advance. You have to be on scene before they're going to enter it for the officer, because otherwise the officer might get there before you. So you're going to be at the...
That's why I'm calling now, and I'm here now.
Great. So I didn't talk to you, and nothing was put in the system, so I'm just letting you know that because I'm going to have to ask you all the information again. So you're at the post office at the vehicle?
Correct.
Whereabouts in the parking lot, or is it a small parking lot there?
It's a small parking lot, and I'm out front.
Okay, and what color is your vehicle? And what's the reason that you need the police for the standby? Is there some kind of order in place?
I thought that was you guys placing the order.
What's that
I don't
mean?
know how to do this. I've never had to do this before. I'm in a domestic violence situation, and I need to get a couple of things out of my house so that I can go and be safe somewhere else, and I'll be moving out on Saturday.
Sounds to me like this process calls for buzzwords. Say domestic violence situation. Say go be safe somewhere else. You can just hear in her voice that it's like buzzword, 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 domestic violence, domestic violence. I can hear that this is fraudulent, but I know her. Can you guys hear it? Can the dispatchers weed through this stuff? I mean, this has got to stop. This is horrible.
All I was asking is why the police were coming out, as if there was an order in place. Is there a protection or domestic violence protection order in place?
I don't know how to do that. I've never had to do this before. How do I do that? Do I need to do that?
I'm not, no, ma'am, you're going way ahead of me. The question I asked was just a yes or no answer.
The answer is no. I don't.
Then that's all we need to, that's all.
I totally know what this woman feels like. Trust me. I'm speechless.
Need to know then. No, there's nothing in place that restrains you from being able to go there, correct? So
my husband,
the address, I'm talking about a court order. I was very specific on that. So let's just listen to my questions all the way through, and it'll probably be more simplified for you. I'm not trying to make this difficult. Okay. I have to ask certain things.
I have to commend her on holding it together. Because typically, if you said something like that to her, like listen to my whole... If you got condescending with her, you were in for it. You didn't get condescending with her, or else she would lose her mind. She was the queen of condescension, but don't use it on her.
Is when I enter the call, I'm going to get a note from the dispatcher asking me all the things I didn't ask you. So the address that you want us to go with you to is that's a house or apartment?
House.
Okay, and then you believe it's your husband that resides there as well?
Correct.
Okay, and what's his last name? His first name?
David.
And does he have a middle initial?
A.
What race is David?
White male.
Date of birth?
White Caucasian. 1974.
And about how tall is he?
6'3".
Heavy, thin, or average build?
Thin.
And is there any weapons kept in the home?
Yes, he has several guns.
Look, I totally understand you have to ask if there's guns. I owned guns. I'm a gun owner. I had my dad's collector's gun and I had a Hockler & Koch 45. Keep them in the safe. I've always had a gun for home protection. Never had to use it for any reason. So I do get this. But come on. A false report, embellish the guns. Wait till you see what else she embellishes.
Yes, he has several guns.
Where does he keep them?
Either in a drawer under the bed or in a safe.
Once again, always in the safe, never in the drawer under the bed. I think she just threw that in to make her several statement stick a little harder.
Okay, and this is going to be like the master bedroom?
Correct.
Both the safe and the drawer?
Correct.
Any drug or alcohol use that would give him a chance of being under the influence?
He does use marijuana, alcohol, and he's also on Adderall.
Isn't everybody on Adderall these days? Anyway, I don't drink. My mom drank herself to death. Somebody else drank in the family, but it wasn't me.
Does he abuse Adderall, or is that something he just takes medication?
He takes medication, but the answer to that question is up for interpretation, I guess, by his doctor.
The fact of the matter is, medication should have probably been more prevalent in this relationship. My medications were stable.
I'm not familiar with Adderall. Is that something that would change his demeanor or his...
Not familiar with Adderall. She's probably in my generation. See, in our generation, all the doctors tried to prescribe me Ritalin, but I didn't want to take methamphetamines every day in school. It just didn't feel right.
Behavior?
I would
for
say yes
officer
to that,
safety?
yes.
Do you know how Adderall is spelled?
I can Google it for you. It's a...
Is it Adderall? Does that sound right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And what condition is that for?
It's for attention deficit disorder.
Okay, all right. Do you think he's going to
Type of
be
amphetamine.
combative with the police at all?
Likely, yes.
Combative with the police even. So now I'm a drug abusing, combative, armed, abusive, scary person. Isn't it amazing how quick somebody can paint a picture for another person? That information being false, to me, is just downright despicable for any reason.
Okay, so does he have any history of that?
Not physical violence, but verbal abuse. He's very verbal.
Okay, so you think he could be verbal with the officers?
Watch out for the scary, gun-toting, drug-addicted, violent, verbal guy. Be very careful. Careful of the verbal guy.
Thanks for your patience. I got everything I need. I'm going to get this entered, requesting a contact you there at the post office. So just wait there. If anything changes before they arrive, give us a call back here at dispatch, okay?
So our therapist, earlier the previous day, had made a statement to me that I was kind of confused about. She said, I do not recommend finding yourself in the house with her alone, meaning go there with a witness of some sort. I kind of blew that off. You know, the reason I blew that off is because every time we've had fights, but we always make up and find a way to calm things down. And once I can get her kind of back down to earth. So I wasn't worried about that. But the video you're about to see is our first interaction since these phone calls took place. Now you be the judge. Is this a situation of domestic violence? Okay, entering the house. We stayed here together last night. Everything was calm. Come on. Where you at? Okay. As you can see, I'm kind of a scary fella. Totally speed through this video. This is probably, gosh, I don't know, 10 minutes of video. Basically just to show we did not have a domestic violence situation. This was all done to put some sort of twisted context on why we were getting divorced. That's all I can think of. I mean, we had a great night. You know, again, we got pretty emotional. And like I said, you know, we loved each other. We didn't want to get divorced. I guess our personalities just didn't blend. It was not, you know, when the times are good, when there's money and everybody's spending and traveling, but when times get tough, if it can't work, when times are tough, what is that? That's not a marriage. So, let's all be a little nicer to one another. And do not make phony claims of domestic violence. I remember when after kind of the aftermath of this, you know, seeing Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's trial, it really hit home. Because I'll tell you, what came after this was pretty nuts. And again, it's a tough thing to go through for anybody. I don't wish it upon anybody. So don't weaponize the courts. How about just not being abusive? That's the one I like the most. I think that's awesome. Being nice is the best. I know the video is fairly anticlimactic. I did a voiceover on the audio because we were talking about sensitive information. There was no point in anybody hearing that. I just wanted everybody to see that this was the interaction. This was most of our interactions, very calm and very collected, unless there was Pinot Noir involved. So about 4 weeks later, after I tried to reach out and make sure she was doing okay, I couldn't reach her. I got a little worried. Her mom had died in between her leaving my house and you know, about maybe 3 to 4 weeks later. And the next thing you know, I had a restraining order delivered by the local police department. I had my guns confiscated in front of my children and some neighbors. And it was incredibly embarrassing and incredibly just, I mean, I can't even put into words how I felt. It's the same feeling you get when you get robbed. Like if somebody broke into your house and robbed you. It's literally that same feeling of helplessness and anger and fear and anxiety. And I've had anxiety ever since. Never had anxiety before this. So the moral of the story is just be kind, be logical, have empathy for the person next to you, and let's all just try to live in a little better place. Be kind to your neighbors. Be kind to your kids. Be kind to animals. And we might just pull ourselves out of this tailspin of the weaponization of the courts, the weaponization of the justice system, and who knows? Maybe the bridal shops will pop back up again since they all went out of business since nobody's getting married anymore. Can't really see why, huh?